Welcome to the Your Lifestyle is Your Medicine podcast, where we do deep dives into the topics of mind, body, and spirit. Through these conversations, you'll hear practical advice and effective strategies to improve your health and ultimately add health span to your lifespan. I'm Ed Paget, and I'm an osteopath and exercise physiologist with a special interest in longevity. Today, my guest is Dr. Sheila Carroll. She's board certified in general pediatrics and obesity medicine. She's been working in clinical practice for 22 years, and she's certified in weight loss, which helps her and her clients achieve the same transformation she did many years ago. Now, today's episode is about children, and we're calling it Ancient Body, Modern World, Why Your Kids Need Your Help to Live a Healthy Lifestyle. We're going to get deep into all the things that you can do to set your kids up for success in this world where, let's be honest, things aren't going in their direction when it comes to nutrition and exercise. So stay tuned. You're going to learn a lot from this episode. Dr. Sheila Carroll, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Okay, so one of the questions I had straight up was, you are board certified in general pediatrics and obesity medicine, yet you've done this additional certification as a weight loss coach. Why did you feel you had to do more education than what you got in the standard medical approach?
Well, that came from my own personal growth and my own personal journey. I've struggled with my weight my whole life. And several years ago, I joined it's a life coaching program for weight loss. It was called Weight Loss for Doctors Only.
Oh,
And it was run by a physician, but who had become a life coach. And when I went through that program, I learned so many new skills and so many tools. And I was actually able to shift my thinking in a way that helped me lose. I've lost 45 pounds and have kept it off for years. And also, more importantly, I was like, oh my goodness, this is what all my patients need. Well, my patients' parents.
yeah.
It's what I needed. And then I could see, like, oh, this is so powerful. So I became a certified life coach, life and weight coach myself. And I love it. It's so empowering. And it gives people, as doctors, we tell people, do this, don't do this,
Mhm.
don't do this. But they leave the office and they're like, "Oh, how am I gonna get myself to do all of these things that I know I should be doing?" That's what life coaching gives you,
Mhm.
the skill set and the coaching, so that you actually learn what how your thinking and your feeling is impacting your actions, and you can, kind of manage your thinking to get yourself to do the things that you want to do.
Yeah.
It's so amazing.
It's brilliant, isn't it? I mean, I was trained as an osteopath, and people come with a problem, and they expect you to give them the answer for the solution. So I'm
Right.
like, okay, I'm going to use my hands to do this, and I want you to do this exercise this way. And then I trained as a HINSA performance coach, and we were taught this motivational interviewing technique, and it's night and day. The client says, "Yeah, I really want to lose weight." Well, how would you lose weight?
Mm,
What can you do? And they come up with all the
yeah.
answers, and you're
Yeah.
not telling them anything. It's
Hmm.
it's it's brilliant, but very hard to do as a sort of as a physician or as a practitioner, where you've gone to school to give advice to people. That shift from being a practitioner to coaching, I think that's what you're talking about as well. But what I'm interested in is your training as in pediatrics and obesity. Why wasn't that enough, or why didn't that give you the tools you needed to help your clients?
So as a pediatrician, my clients are the kids,
Hmm.
usually. So people bring their child to you. My child's struggling with overweight, or my child is struggling with anxiety, or whatever the problem is. As a pediatrician, the way the medical system is set up, especially here in the U.S., is you you talk to the kid and try to help the child. But what I learned, and what I mean, it was what I learned over years and years, and then like became cemented in my brain when I understood life coaching, was these little kids' brains are not developed enough. Their prefrontal cortex is not developed enough. Even if they really want to make a change, their brains are not ready for that. They can't do that complex thinking about your thinking, that meta skill.
Mhm.
But who can is their parents. And so if we can teach the parents these tools and skills, so two things will happen. Well, frankly, the parents will become healthier because they'll implement these healthy lifestyle choices for themselves. They'll feel better, and when they feel better, then they're super committed to helping their child feel better. And once the parent learns all of these skills, as their child developmentally ages, they'll be able to teach, impart these skills to their kids over time.
Mhm.
So then you end up with a 25-year-old, child, or, adult at that point, but who already knows all of these skills that frankly I didn't learn until I was in my 50, till I was 50.
Yeah.
So it's so that's my approach. Is kids aren't ready for it. They just can't possibly do it. I have an 11-year-old son, Theo, and he wants to make really healthy choices. But then there's like, the Gatorade, and the Doritos. And it's just like his little brain, he's like, yeah, but I want the Doritos. I'm like, I know, buddy.
Yeah.
you
Well,
know, so
I think we'll get into that later because
yeah.
I've got two kids as well. I got a 13-year-old and a 10-year-old, and I go on Instagram. I spend time on Instagram because that's where I work, and you have these young influencers saying all you got to do is eat healthy and your kids will copy you. And I'm like, guys, you don't have kids. It doesn't work like that.
Right.
I'm sure you're the same. I'm pretty healthy in almost most aspects of my life. Yet when those Doritos or that Gatorade or sweets get at a cake comes out at a birthday party, my son is like a little demon. He will hide it and eat it and squirrel it away. Yes.
And so so there's so much to go into for parents about that. First of all, perfectly 100% normal.
Mhm.
Your son, my son, they're just little humans, and like we do, this ancient human body that we have evolved over the years. We love food like that. We love sugar. We love that complex, gives you a very big dopamine hit.
Mhm.
It's part of the learning pathway. It's what's kept us alive for thousands of years. So, first of all, it's super normal for our kids to like that. Second of all, what we really don't want to be doing is like shaming them or making them feel bad. That's where so many people in their lives have had, diet trauma,
Mhm.
or made to feel bad about their weight. And so we don't want, as parents can learn the skills to avoid that trap. Um, and so there's just and then also just what I always say to my clients is like, this is the world we're swimming, this is the water we're swimming in.
Mhm.
My son right now, he's at a basketball camp. And literally for basketball camp, I packed him some healthy food, some healthy snacks, but they're selling him Doritos and Gatorade at lunch if he wants to. And he's 11, and I don't want him. It's my personal choice. I could not give him money. I could tell him, look, you are shut down from that. But that's not how I'm approaching it. I'm going to offer him some autonomy. Here's, some money. Here's why I would recommend not getting Powerade. And I'm pretty strict with him about, or I'm pretty direct. I don't want you drinking these sugary beverages. But I didn't take his money from him.
Yeah.
I'm letting him make that choice.
Yeah.
Um, so anyways, this is the difficulty parents are facing. It is, these treats that people used to have. Oh, it's a treat to get ice cream. Well, now people have ice cream every day.
Yeah.
Now
Exactly.
they have Doritos and cupcakes, and it's just everywhere, every sport,
Mhm.
every
Mhm.
party, everything. It's everywhere. So how are we as parents gonna manage that?
Yeah. It's you just reminded me of a funny incident. I'll share it with you. People listening to this might think I'm a bad parent or a good parent. I don't know. So in some mornings I go to the gym with my son before school, and he has a kickboxing or a Muay Thai coach, and I'm in the gym. We do that for an hour, and he finishes a little bit before me, and he walks down to the bus where there's a school pickup in the local town, and him and his buddy, they do it together, and his buddies introduced him to this sort of it's like a milkshake, but we're in Central America, so it's a little bit different. It's like it comes in a plastic bag, and it's like this fresco milk, chocolate milk. Anyway, he's started having stomach ache, so I know he's got a little bit of a problem with dairy, and I said, let's not get that today. You can get something else, but be sensible. And next to where the bus stop is this little market where I get my vegetables from. So I finished the gym. I'm in there getting some vegetables, and I see him walk out of the shop with like some bags of things. I'm like, I call over the street. I'm like, hey, what did you get? And he's like, and I could see him trying to put stuff behind him. And all the parents are lined up, all the mums and dads are lined up, dropping their kids off. So I got my bag of broccoli, and I march over, and he's bought this Coca-Cola, but it's not Coca-Cola. It's like the Nicaraguan equivalent of Coca-Cola, a donut, and then some boiled sweets. And I'm like, nope, nope, nope. And I pull out a bag of bananas, and I give him these bananas, and I put them on the bus, and I turn around, and all the mums were standing there, and they start clapping. They just start clapping. And I was like, well, yeah, maybe, but I did just publicly shame him in front of all his friends.
It's hard. It is so hard to know what to
Yeah,
do in those
yeah,
situations because ultimately you want your son, and he will. This is where I have complete confidence in the kids. Like, because you're buying the broccoli and living that lifestyle,
yeah.
he can be choosing the soda right now. But as he ages and he's able to tie his choices with the results he's
Mhm,
experiencing in his life, he will step into owning that for himself.
mhm. Yeah, I hope so.
I
There's a
believe
book
that.
there's a book that I read called Not About the Broccoli, and I forget the author's name, unfortunately, but she listed 10 different reasons why your kids are fussy, and my kids can be a bit fussy. And one of them was, a lot about nutrition, and you've told your kid about that. And I was like, oh, yes, I've done that. And it's almost like has the opposite effect because they're not interested in fiber or vitamins or minerals or whatever. They want to know what it tastes like. And so there's me trying to give them the food, and you compare broccoli with Doritos or whatever else, there the high fructose corn syrup that has that huge dopamine effect, like you
Mm.
said. It's going to lose every time. And I looked at it and I was like, oh yeah, I've made some big mistakes when the kids were younger on trying to overeducate them.
Well, I think education is good for them. They
Right.
they want to be healthy, right? And
Yes.
what they're facing is this what they want the taste of the Doritos, but they want the health effect of the of the
Yeah.
broccoli too. And so that's what all of us are facing. That's
Mm.
what every single person is going through. And it isn't until, so for me, I did what happened in my own mind because I did a lot of work on this. I'm at the place where I feel so free around Doritos. I don't feel called to eat them. I don't feel like I have to. I don't feel deprived if I'm not eating them. I feel like, oh, they're Doritos, fine, no problem. I'm choosing not to eat them. I don't even want to eat them because I don't like the results they're
Mm.
giving me in my body when I eat them.
Mm.
And so that's what like freedom around food is. You can be with it, be around it. And the same thing with alcohol. It's the same thing, it's the same thing with everything. Like, as an adult, decide on purpose, like what's the result I want, and okay, what choices do I have to make to get that result?
Mm.
But
Yes.
kids are too little for that, you
Yeah,
know?
they like you say, they don't have that prefrontal
Yeah.
cortex developed enough. Yeah, you're right.
Right.
Let's back up a little bit, and I want to ask you about the state of the problem of obesity in children in, let's say, in the US. That's obviously your specialty.
Mm. So it's a problem for sure. The last data I think from the CDC was pre-pandemic. And I've seen multiple different numbers, but it's somewhere between 20% of kids all the way up to 30% of kids. So 1 in 3 versus 1 in 5 kids in the United States are suffering from overweight or obesity.
Mm. And
So
how
it's
do
a
we,
yeah.
sorry, how did we get to that situation?
Well, if you look back at the graphs of when obesity really started to take off, it was the very late 70s, 1978, 1980, and it's coincided perfectly with the rise of snack food companies and these highly processed foods.
Mm.
And so, uh, and so a bunch of factors, right? Um, so kids are eating more frequently. 50 years ago or in the 60s or in the 50s when obesity was rare, I think at that time there was 5% obesity.
Right.
So one in 20 kids, um but so kids are now snacking 7 to 8 times a day versus people used to eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and they weren't grazing all day long on these foods. So also the types of foods available are so different today. And the plain fact that we have to recognize, and that I don't think a lot of doctors, because we don't get educated on it, or at least when I went through medical school, we don't get educated on like how different foods affect our body, affect our hormones.
Hmm.
I think a lot of doctors are still believing that it's calories in, calories out.
Mm.
So, 500 calories of celery is the same as 500 calories of sugar. And
Right.
we know for a fact that the hormonal responses to um, celery versus sugar are vastly different.
Mhm.
And so weight loss is really a hormonal phenomenon, weight gain and weight loss. Um, and of course, there's the other things, the screen time, which is decreasing kids, making them more sedentary
Yeah.
potentially. And then sleep. The United States is not a country that really prioritizes its sleep.
Yeah.
So there's so many factors, but the modern world is really, while there's so many awesome, obviously amazing things about having your phone and look stuff up, and it's just incredible. At the same time, we need to understand this very old body that we are living in and how it's reacting to all the modern world
Mhm.
that we're in.
Can you tell us a little bit more about the hormones? Like maybe compare what would happen on a more of a traditional meal compared to what happens on the modern snack food to a kid's hormones?
Yeah, sure. So, well, we can talk about glucose because that's sugar, and that's a common thing that parents, kind of know. So, one thing is a great strategy for parents is to start looking at labels. So, read labels, and what you're really looking for, well, one thing you're looking for is added sugars. So, there's natural sugar in fruit and natural sugar in vegetables and carbohydrates that way, which are totally fine, but what we're talking about is added sugars. So if you say eat a bunch of Doritos, or a cookie or some M&Ms or something, you are getting a large glucose load. Your child is getting a large glucose load. What their body does, and it's all bodies, so it's not just the kids,
Hmm.
but the body is designed to clear that glucose out of your bloodstream, because you don't want glucose in your bloodstream because it's damaging to the blood vessels. And so it drives your insulin level up. And so insulin is will take your glucose out of your bloodstream and allow your cells and push the glucose into your cells. But insulin is also a fat storage hormone, and a fat blocking hormone. So you can't use your fat stores when your insulin level is high, and then you're also storing this glucose now in your cells if you're not able to use it right away as fat. So and there's other hormones too, ghrelin and leptin. It's actually not that complicated, and it can be made simple to understand. But I think the take home message could be that food choices matter, and one way to kind of weight manage or even lose weight is trying to keep your insulin levels low-ish.
Hmm.
Low would be the right, and so eating foods that are not going to make your glucose level go up. um, and so so the one reason you would want to eat fruit, an apple or an orange instead of apple juice or orange juice, would be because the fruit has fiber, and the minerals, and the speed with which the glucose is absorbed into your body when you eat a apple, like a real apple, versus drink apple juice, which is just the sugar from the apple without the fiber. There's just such an incredible difference in how your body is able to process those two different foods,
Hmm.
even though they're, the same.
So with blood glucose being the focus of what you were just talking about, have you experimented with the continuous blood glucose monitors that seem to be a bit of a rage at the moment?
I want one.
Yeah.
I have actually considered, I don't have pre-diabetes, so they're not covered by any insurance here.
Right.
There are companies that sell them, or you can buy them without a prescription,
Yeah.
and get them. But no, personally, I haven't. But I use this method of keeping my insulin, choosing foods that keep my insulin level low,
Hmm.
and that is honestly the method I use to lose my own weight
Hmm.
and to keep my weight as I want it, for the past several years that
Mm.
way.
And I'm sure some people would say, well, if you're eating low glucose foods, you're not just eating less calories.
Not necessarily, because so here's the thing: if you do want to lose weight, you do need to be in some sort of a calorie deficit.
Hmm.
I think it's if you didn't eat sugar, but you drank a cup of olive oil,
Right.
your body would process that extra energy as fat, as and store it as fat.
Yeah.
So you do need to be in somewhat of a calorie deficit, but here's the thing: when you're trying to lose weight, what you're actually asking your body to do is to burn the energy stores that you already have on it. Burn my own fat. One of my coaches called it dining in,
Ah.
like, yeah, just use your own body's source of energy. We all have plenty of it, you know and we also call this becoming fat adapted, and versus being a sugar burner. If you are a person who's eating a lot of foods with added sugars, you might notice eat high sugar breakfast, sugar cereal or whatever, then an hour later you're super hungry.
Mhm.
And you're hungry because your insulin levels are going and your glucose levels are going up and down, and your body's actually interpreting that as hunger. And oh, we need our glucose level is kind of on the downstroke here. We need something else, and so it sends messages to your brain. Oh, we're hungry. Eat something else. So you're going up and down and up and down, and that leads to excess calories coming in and leads to weight gain. Versus if you're able to choose foods that don't have a lot of added sugars, then your body is able to use your own stored fat as its energy source, and you're not really experiencing the same hunger roller coaster ride that you would. That was the biggest shock for me when I first heard, my coach approach, which is I think is an amazing approach to weight loss, is
Mhm.
um, at least temporarily stop eating flour and sugar,
Yeah.
because this will reset your body back to factory settings, kind of,
Mm.
so to speak, back
Yeah.
to like, your ancient settings. When I first heard that, I was like, what? Who eats like that? That seems impossible, you know? But I got myself to the place where I'm like, okay, well, I'm not happy where I am right now. I'm going to trust this person and I'm just going to try it. What's the worst that could happen? And it turns out it was the best thing I ever tried. Also, I was shocked at how not hungry I was.
Hmm.
When I gave up eating added sugars and flour, I my hunger levels pretty much go to 0, to tell you the truth. And that allows you to not be so miserable trying to lose weight, because the misery part is like you're hungry all the time. So you're fighting yourself trying to not eat. But you're just the hunger levels go way down. And I know a lot of parents struggle with that with their kids. Are like, I'm hungry, I'm hungry. And as parents, we don't want our kids to be hungry. We want to feed them. But if you could focus on feeding your child like real, whole, unprocessed foods, make sure they get enough healthy fat, make sure they get enough protein, complex carbohydrates, and less added sugars, their hunger level will go down,
Hmm.
you know?
Can you give some examples of, I'm sure there's some parents listening and they're like, okay, this all sounds great, but what do I feed my kid for breakfast before school?
Eggs. I feed my son a lot of eggs. Um, I sometimes he has leftover from the night before. If we've had, some kind of chicken or something, I could make him a chicken taco. Or what else? Like I make sure that he's having protein in the morning. That is one thing I'm pretty adamant about. And so, we have a version of a pancake. And my son is not sugar free. I mean,
Right.
I wish he was, honestly, but that's just not where we've been able to get to just yet.
Mhm.
But so he eats protein pancakes. He eats lots of different kind of eggs, leftovers for food, leftovers from the night before. Um, and if you were a vegetarian, I know kids eat beans for breakfast. So there's so many different
Mhm.
options. Um,
So
yeah.
you don't coach a family to say, okay, here's some breakfast options for you. Like your coaching practice is different, is it, than that?
Well, I don't like to tell people what to
No.
eat,
Yeah.
because I'm not creating a diet for them. What I want the parents to do, I want the parents to figure out a way of eating for themselves and their family that's going to work well for them. I
Mhm.
don't want them to be relying on me telling them what to eat, right? Because this is what we're trying to do, is just change some habits for the long road.
Mhm.
Okay, so what kind of protein does your child eat? I would love it if my son would eat tofu, but he doesn't really love that. So, okay, so that's off the table for him. I'm not going to force him to eat something he doesn't like. But, what options are good for him? Because we don't want to take the all the enjoyment out of food either. We want to find a way of eating that works for the individual family and the individual
Mhm.
child. And it
Yeah.
takes some trial and error. And sometimes I make stuff and my son is like, no, thank you. And
Yes.
I'm like, okay. But honestly, then I follow that up with, okay, but I'm not giving up. We're keep going. We're gonna figure this out. We have to. There's no other option. If
And
we just let our kids eat whatever the heck they wanted to,
no.
the problem is the consequences of eating all of these added sugars and all of this highly processed foods. Yes, you're going to end up with overweight at some point, but you might also now it's being tied to Alzheimer's disease and cancers, all of um, these, this kind of food. It creates whole body inflammation and inflammation in your brain, and that is causing us disease processes, type
Mhm.
2 diabetes. So
Mhm.
it's just, I think as parents, we just have to figure out a way that we can, help our kids now, and also have the long view of, okay, but what I'm really doing is setting the stage for them to know all of the skills that when they launch from the launching pad, whenever that is, they'll already possess those skills that will help them make the choices that will keep them as healthy as possible.
Perfect. Yeah. From my point of view, it's like, so, if you let your kids eat what they want, they're going to make, most of the time, they're going to make poor choices because the food is so addictive. The sugar is so addictive.
Mhm.
But then the consequence of that is obesity, like you say, inflammation. And that inflammation and obesity goes to diabetes. And then diabetes can go to, like, dementia, heart disease, and then cancers. And
Mm,
so if you're setting your kid up inadvertently, you're setting your kid up for these problems in later life. That's the opposite of the title of this podcast. That's not lifestyle medicine. That's lifestyle poison,
right.
essentially. And
Yeah.
they're not going to have a healthy and long life. But what do you do with clients who maybe their kid has been told by their doctor to lose weight, and you get them, but you notice the parents are also overweight, like it's a family thing?
Hmm. I only coach parents. So
Oh,
I
okay, yeah.
I always start with the parents. Even if, because some people just gain weight more easily than other people. There's some people who eat you would say like way too much highly processed foods, but they're slim or
Yeah.
they don't appear overweight. Probably metabolically inside they're not thriving like they could be if they were making different food choices. There's even a medical term for that, TOFI, thin on the outside, fat on the inside.
Yes.
I mean, so it just so happens, everybody's body handles these foods differently. So it doesn't matter really how if the parent is weighing more than they want to weigh, then it's kind of, then it's easy, it's not even easier, but my approach is the same with a parent. I ask the parent to change what they're eating, even if they are slim or weigh what they want to weigh, but they're eating these other foods that they're buying and serving at home. Okay, parent, before you change anything with your child, let's change what you're eating so you can experience the benefits of this lifestyle. Let's get
Mhm.
you sleeping the right way, eating the right way, moving the right way, processing your emotions, learning how to manage your stress, and so that you can be the healthy role model for your child. And it's if you are yeah, so that's my approach for the first part of my
Mhm.
when I start coaching parents.
Mm.
And then, okay, once you're dialed in, what's the beautiful thing is usually the parents start to feel like, oh my gosh, I feel amazing. And I want my child to feel amazing too. And so once you're bought in, it's easier to, skip the Dorito aisle
Yeah.
in the grocery store when you're like, oh, these really aren't, he'll feel better if he doesn't eat those,
Mhm.
and parents really believe. But it's a process, it takes time.
Totally.
And but it's so powerful and so freeing. So it's well worth the work for parents to
Mhm.
do.
What do you think about the recent news media on obesity being genetic, and because it's genetic, the pill, what's it called, the Omnipec pill? I forget the name of the pill, but
Ozempic,
yes, that
yeah,
pill
the
is
GLP-1
is the
agonist.
solution.
Yeah. Well, there are some very, very rare forms of obesity
Yeah.
that are truly genetic, meaning like you have a gene defect or,
Right.
you have a DNA issue and that leads you to overeating. Those are super rare.
Mhm.
And this is where even though I became board certified in obesity medicine, I don't necessarily agree with every single, um, what's the right word? Or theory or
Mhm.
rationale. I went to a conference, a medical conference, and the first thing that one of the bariatric surgeons said, so the surgeons who do the weight loss surgery,
Mhm.
he said, obesity is a disease that has no cure. And I I just disagree with that.
Yeah.
Um, But I think that that's a common thought in a medical in medicine today.
Mhm.
So I do think we don't really know honestly why some people gain weight more easily than others. Um, for example, I was one of 5 kids, and we were all eating the same foods. I started to gain weight, and but here's the thing: once you start to gain weight, your extra weight, your adipose tissue, your fat tissue, kind of drives you to eat more. So
Yeah.
it's a little bit of a vicious cycle there. So I eventually ended up eating more than my slim siblings,
Mhm.
but not at first. We were all just eating the same foods, but my particular body seemed to store weight more
Mhm.
easily. So
Yeah.
yes, there's genetics. Yes, it's we don't know. We don't know why
Well, it's
what
never one
exactly.
thing, is it? It could
It's
be
not one thing
your gut
exactly.
microbiome. It could be your brain's perception of stress, increasing cortisol, or whatever it is. But
100%.
what I've noticed recently as well is that there's this slight shift around promoting the genetic angle of obesity, which to me just doesn't make any sense. Like you said, there's a very small percentage because,
Right.
you know, 50 years ago, there weren't that many people who were obese, and now there are. So it can't be genetic. Our grandparents or great grandparents weren't obese. So that knocks that argument out for me. Have you ever had someone who just can't lose weight?
Yes. Yeah.
What do you attribute? Because I've heard this in some of my clients as well. They say they've tried everything. And, I always wonder, does trying everything, what does that mean? And I dig into it a little bit, but I wanted to know what your experience is of this some people who just can't seem to lose weight.
Well, my experience has been with adults who say that they can't lose weight. They're they've been unable to make the changes that would allow them to lose
Mhm,
weight.
mhm.
It's not like they're eating real whole unprocessed foods and they're not losing weight.
Right.
They've been unable My experience has been that they've been unable to make the lifestyle changes that you need to make that would allow you to lose weight.
Mhm.
um, and one of my coaches says that people, you you don't have an overeating problem, you have an underfeeling problem. And so usually it's very emotional. For me, my experience with parent or people who can't lose weight is they're unable to give up the food that they want to eat, the sugar and all of the highly
Mhm.
processed foods. They're unable to give that up because they're eating it for emotional
Right.
reasons, and they don't have the skills and the tools, and they may not even have the willingness to feel that those negative emotions
Mhm.
that crop up when you don't eat. If you're used to eating for stress relief, or boredom or restlessness, and fear, you're like, if you're used to doing that and you try to stop doing that, you need the resources within you. You need the skills to be able to feel stressed and not reach for ice cream that is going to make the chemically through your brain make
Mm.
that stress go down temporarily.
Yeah,
See what I'm saying?
I do see what you're saying. I mean, I've been thinking about other aspects of their lifestyle. I've thought, well, maybe these people aren't sleeping well enough, or their stress
Yeah.
levels are too high, or there's something else going on in their lifestyle as opposed to what they're eating. But you're right. I've never really thought about one of those things. It's like the reason why do you eat?
Well, yeah, like, why aren't you sleeping well? Why aren't you going to bed on time? Why aren't you leaving your phone downstairs if your
Mhm.
bedroom's upstairs? What's going on, and why can't we get you to a place where you're getting the result you want?
Mm. And what about with a kid? Have you ever had a kid that hasn't lost weight?
Well, yes, if the parents
Yeah.
don't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As I
And
asked that question, I was like, okay, there's the answer right there. Yeah.
well, yeah. And I sometimes also like eh, I think your child so as a parent, I'll just speak for myself with my 11-year-old son, you know, I'm I care less about what his number on the scale is. I'm really focusing on his overall health
Mm,
and what I think I want him to be learning now and to be seeing me practice the things that over time are going to keep him as healthy as possible.
mhm.
He's choosing Gatorade and Doritos probably right now as we speak. And I wish he wasn't, but he probably is.
Yeah.
But over time, with the education I'm going to give him and the support I'm going to give him and the acceptance I'm giving him now for who he really is, then when he gets older and he asks himself, what are my core values as a adult myself? You can't ask your 11-year-old what your core values are. He's going to be like, what the heck are you talking
Yeah.
about? You know? But as an adult, what is, health and caring for myself
Mhm.
and, preserving and protecting my good health, that's important to me. And so he'll already know what to do at that point.
Yeah. Yeah, I think this holistic approach, it's what's needed in our communities to help educate the parents to then when the parents make the change, the kids will make the change for sure. But what do you do, or do you see anyone from sort of low socioeconomic groups that may feel as though they can't afford to eat differently or change things?
Yeah, I think so for sure. And that's real. That's the
Mhm.
truth. Sometimes real I mean, processed food is so cheap, right? Like
Yeah.
it's just because it's subsidized by the government and all, and so it's a setup. However, I still think there's ways around this. So a couple of things like frozen vegetables, those are great. Those are cheaper.
Mhm.
Those are much cheaper than fresh vegetables, and there's still all the benefits
Mhm.
of the health. Beans, like there's so many different things that are economical.
Yeah.
The other thing is, like I said before, is you'll probably be eating less food because you won't be as hungry if you're eating real whole unprocessed foods instead of all of the processed foods, which
Mhm.
is driving our hunger. And there's a whole concept of food deserts. Have you heard of that term in the United
Yep.
States? Probably all over the world, right? Where people can't get these healthy foods. Um, and I wish I had a good solution to that problem, but that
Yeah.
is, I think for me, education is the key for people to understand how our bodies evolved. We didn't evolve eating these processed foods. We have not, our brains and our bodies metabolically over the past 50 years, we're overwhelming our system.
Mhm.
And then, okay, if I am if I don't have enough money or if I'm not near healthy food, what's the next best choice I can make?
Mhm.
Would be one question to ask it. And what is one little thing I could do? I can always drink water
Mhm.
instead of, soda or juice
Yeah.
um, but I wish I had an answer to that whole,
I mean, that's the million dollar question,
yeah,
isn't it? That's the question that most developed countries are facing at the moment is there's pockets of in cities and things, there's pockets where there's more obesity than others, and it's usually in the lower socioeconomic areas. Um, the food desert thing is interesting. I remember going to a health conference up in the US and flying through a couple of airports and finding it so difficult to find anything to eat in these airports that's not ultra processed. And so I got there and I asked all these other guys, a lot of health gurus there. I'm like, so how do you guys do it? How do you travel to these conferences? And they said, well, we just fast. Like
yeah,
travel time is fasting time.
Yeah.
And I'd never thought of that before. I was just, and I do fast. I'm not great at it because I don't have much body fat at all, and I think I've got a high metabolism, whatever you want to call it. So fasting for me is not my real friend. But since this was about 9 years ago, since I heard that, I was like, yes. So now when I travel, I'm like, okay, it's a fasting day, it's fasting day, and I just make sure I'm hydrated, and I just try not to eat, so I'm not caught out in those places where I'm like, oh, I'm so hungry, I'm just going to buy a bag of
Right.
whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's how, honestly, that's how you lose weight, or you maintain your weight. It takes some planning. It
Hmm.
takes okay, we're going to my mom's. I know my mom has XYZ. What
Hmm.
am I going to eat when I'm there? And how do I want to think about being there? So you can plan in advance and either pack your own food or whatever. And also sometimes I go to people's houses or I go to parties and things, and I'm fine not eating. I don't need to eat
Hmm.
I don't even need a piece of cake, even at my own birthday party at this point.
Yeah.
It's fine for me because I don't really want the result of what eating that cake does for me.
Yeah.
Um, so yes, I think that but it's really up here, right? It's up here in our brains is where it starts, like
Hmm.
how we're thinking about what we're choosing
Hmm.
to do and live our life.
Hmm.
Um,
And
yeah, the kids can't do that. Like we keep saying, these little kids, they just do
yes,
not have the capability for that.
they don't have the capability, but they still have that ancient body, and these modern foods mess with it in as in ways we're discovering. But recently in the last 10 years, I think it was Robert, what was his name, Leiswig, he
Oh
started
yeah, let's think.
researching that
Yeah.
non-alcoholic fatty liver syndrome in children. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Is that something you know much about?
Yes, I saw a lot of that actually. You know, so it's called, yeah, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease.
Mhm.
And it is a growing cause. It's one of the leading causes, especially in adults, of liver transplantation in the United States.
Wow.
But basically, the simple version of it is our bodies lost the ability to manage fructose, to
Mm.
kind of handle that sugar. We lost that enzyme apparently a long time ago. There's another guy, blanking his first name, but his last name is Johnson, and his lab does, Dr. Johnson. He does a lot of research in this, and that's his his and Dr. Lustig, I think, would agree with him, is that um, so table sugar is 50% glucose and 50% fructose. So everybody, I kind of think, knows, like, oh, high fructose corn syrup, that's
Mhm.
terrible. That's bad for you. We avoid anything that has that
Mhm.
in it. Well, P.S., any kind of table sugar, cane sugar, is 50% fructose. High fructose corn syrup is only 55% fructose.
Oh, interesting.
So it's really not that much different. Um, but what's happening, how the human body processes fructose is it essentially sends it right through your liver, and it gets changed into adipose tissue or fat droplets that gets stored in your liver. And when you're storing, it's like stuffing, if you had a closet and you're stuffing things in your closet, you're crowding out all the good cells, and you're damaging some of the good cells by the fat infiltrating the liver
Mhm.
where it shouldn't be. And so what that then your liver enzymes go up, and that's how you get diagnosed with non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, is your AST, your ALT go up. Um, and but what's happening is your extra fat is getting stored in your liver, and it's damaging your healthy liver tissue.
Mhm.
So the treatment of that can be reversed with lifestyle changes
Mhm.
and better food choices, different food choices.
And let's say someone really likes fruits. I kind of thinking in my mind, fruit and fructose. Is it the same thing? Like if you eat a lot of fruit, that can happen?
Yeah, no, I mean, yes, there's fructose in fruit, but like we said, it's packaged in the fiber,
Yeah.
so you're not getting this your liver is not getting a massive load of fructose.
Hmm.
First of all, how many apples can one person eat?
Hmm.
Probably not that many, right? But a person can drink a lot of apple juice or a lot of orange juice, which is, the fructose concentration of 8, 9, 10,
Yeah.
whatever fruit you're choosing. And so, no, it's not the same thing, but it's these drinks. So if there's one thing that I really implore all of my former patients and my clients to do is to try to eliminate the sweetened drinks from your
Hmm.
child's life.
Hmm. Hmm.
No soda, no fruit juice. They just don't need it. And diet soda is just as bad. You don't want your child having those artificial sweeteners. Those affect your microbiome. They can affect so many different things. And the other thing that they're doing is that they're also affecting your child's brain, the sweetness. So, the artificial sweeteners are so sweet. They're exponentially sweeter than regular sugar. And so, okay, well, I'll swap out, real sugar for diet or, artificial sugar with no calories. But you're still training your child's brain that they need that intense sweetness, and that drives them to look for more food that's going to give them that sweetness.
Yeah.
So your taste buds turn over every 14 or so days, and so just dial back, the sweetness, and over time your child will be able to really taste the sweetness of a carrot. Even, I mean, carrots have natural sugar in them. Kids can't taste it because they're so used to eating so much extra added sugar and artificial sweeteners.
Hmm. Brilliant. And if someone wanted to find out more about you, how would they do that?
I have a website. It's my whole name, Sheila Carroll, MD. They could go there. They could email. My email is on that site. They could email me through that. That's
Mhm.
probably the best place. I'm
Okay.
trying to have an Instagram game, but I'm new in that.
It's difficult. And with coaching, you can coach worldwide. There's no sort of restrictions on your practice in that way.
Yeah, so I always say, like, I'm a doctor, but I'm not your doctor. I'm a doctor, but I'm not your child's doctor. So yeah, so I'm strictly acting as a life coach, life and weight coach for parents. So I'm not, so there's no insurance, there's no, it's completely separated from medical practice.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Well, Sheila, thank you very much. I think this has been a very informative episode, and I think my listeners are going to love learning from you.
Thank you. And thanks for having me. I've really enjoyed it.
Actually, as I was saying goodbye to Sheila, she did recommend some resources that I share with you. So the first one is a book that's quite clinically heavy. She said it's not for everybody, but if you're interested in the science of the blood glucose and how insulin works, it's called The Obesity Code, and it's by a doctor called Jason Fung. So Obesity Code, Jason Fung. And the other thing she recommended that I share with you is something she shares with the family she works with, and it's called That Sugar Film, and it's on Netflix. So if you look up That Sugar Film on Netflix or wherever you get your videos from, that might be a great start to changing some of your familial habits to help your children. Thank you for joining me in my conversation with Sheila Carroll. If you've enjoyed listening to and learning from this podcast, please leave a comment. And you can also leave a suggestion for future podcast hosts that you would like us to feature. In addition, on Apple, you can leave us up to a 5-star review and you can leave a comment there as well. Now, if you want my help directly, you can send me an email. ed@edpaget.com is my email address, or you can visit my website, edpaget.com. And lastly, but not least, thank you for your interest in lifestyle medicine.